Praise God. That was very good. We should do some more of that, Sanel, in your group. I don't know what they're called. We'll call them the millennials, I guess. I don't know. Very, very good. What a beautiful song. Did someone sing that song professionally? Oh, that's right. I've been hearing it, and that someone ought to make a record out of that song. It's a good one. So I'm going to preach this morning. Let's see how far we get. I'm not going to preach very long because I knew we had special music. So the title of the sermon is Kissing Chimpanzees, but before we really go there, the title, and the reason why I say the title at the beginning now is because the sermons are on Facebook Live, and sometimes people ask me about sermons, I don't remember what I even preached, and I listen to it, and I don't have the title in it, so I have to listen to it a lot to figure out what I'm saying. It's bad, but so now I know if I hear it, go back to it, I can say it's Kissing Chimpanzees from the very beginning. So you can leave that up for a moment, that's fine. But I want to talk this morning. It's called Kissing Chimpanzees, and it will make sense when I'm all through. But I've always wondered why, and I'm not sure, why people are so easily believe things. They believe things very quickly, very easily. They believe, and they believe in the most unbelievable things. They believe in UFOs. They believe in this. They believe in Martians. They believe, and sometimes you wonder, maybe you don't. You wonder, how do people so easily believe some of these things? And I've shared stories with people, just the way I am, just at the moment. Oops. I'll come up with something as I'm speaking, and I come up with these crazy ideas, and I just, they just let them fly. And things anyone with a normal brain would not believe, but they believe them. A banker at Wells Fargo, I was talking, this has been a while back, so this wasn't recently, I've already repented. The banker at Wells Fargo, I asked her, she listens, first thing I do, I see them, so I'm going somewhere, and I said, you watch the news much? She goes, well, no, not really. I said, oh, then you must have missed it. And she said, what? And I said, oh, well, you watch the news. She goes, well, what was it? And I said, because I'm asking her to ask me. That's what I'm doing. I'm asking her to ask me. I know what I'm doing. Anyway, so I said to her, I said, what do you think about the dinosaur loose? She said, dinosaur loose? What are you talking about? I said, Chicago, run the streets of Chicago. Dinosaurs loose running the street of Chicago? I said, well, just one. And I said, yeah. And she said, aren't they extinct? I said, not this one. She said, well, I thought they were extinct. I said, not this one. I don't know the name of it. Some Rex or John Rex. I don't know what the name of it is. I'm not, I don't do that stuff. I don't know about dinosaurs. But she said, where was it? I said, it's in a big zoo. It's a prehistoric zoo, someplace in Chicago, out in the out place. They had a big wall for like 25-foot wall around it. She goes, well, how'd he get out? I said, those dinosaurs could jump. I said, it jumped, and it's getting ready to get into the city, and they're very alarmed by it. She said, oh, my word. She said, I got it. When I get done on my break, I'm gonna look that up and see that. That's scary. That is really scary. No, you're scary, lady. And I laughed. I laughed. But anyway, I don't think I told her that day that I was just kidding. But I guarantee you someone would tell her. And normally I do tell people I'm just kidding. I don't know if it's a gift of kidding. I don't know if there is such a thing. But so you may say, you have a great ability to lie. No, I don't call it lying, but just kidding, just joking, pranking, okay? But what they discovered was, what they discovered was this about human nature. Some psychologists, not all, but many do, that, let me read this first thing. So let me introduce you to something. Go to the picture of, this one isn't, the exact name one is called ADE 651. A water dowsing device is just it literally is like an antenna, a piece of plastic, hollow plastic, and the antenna just goes like this. If you're looking for kids with marijuana, you point it and you just stop on the kid. But just kidding. Anyway, some of you kids go, Don't bring one out, Pastor. Whoa. What do you have in that purse, sister? You be smiling all service. But they have other ones, and they have this one. Now, that one right there, I just told you, it's called the ADE 651. And this is how it works. Electrostatic magnetic ion attraction, which basically translates into pseudoscientific baloney. It doesn't do anything. They used those for a while in Iraq to screen people that were coming in different places. The problem was they sold them for $40,000 a piece. They do nothing. That's the power of belief. The danger of it is the obvious danger. You take it a little bit further, is they use this as a security measure. There's people who would get into an area that they shouldn't be allowed to get in, but since they use that on them, they thought they were clean and clear to go. It becomes very dangerous. So what they found out about people, about any kind of these devices, different things, people have superstitions. What they found out just about human nature was, which I think is very true, they found out that basically our default button is just to believe. I always thought our default fallback would be to disbelieve, be the critical, maybe, but actually belief is natural, disbelief is not natural. Which makes more sense, because you start thinking about belief or not believing. If all you did was, if you didn't believe in anything and you questioned everything, your life would be totally miserable. No, you play it out. You wouldn't. Everything would be questionable. You'd wonder. Some people keep playing this out. They take it to the extreme where they look at the people. They just look at them. They're looking at me. They're talking about me, and they just go on. And they're not believing anything. They become critical. They become what do they call? Anyway, critical of other people. They're basically crazy people, and they get to that degree. But being critical and what's the other word I'm looking for? What's that? Scent? Cynical, that's the word. Like Chanel, cynical. Okay. That's where it just comes out, I told you. So, cynical, you become cynical. And they said being cynical is not natural. You have to make yourself go there. And people, once they start going there, it's almost a pattern for some people. They're very, you look at them later on in life, you say, man, you are very cynical. It becomes a pattern in their life. But to be someone who believes, the truth is we all want to believe. We want to believe God's a good God. We want to believe we come to church that our brother's talking to us and he wants to help us. He really does want to help us. If you believed everything, your life would be about how I'm doing. He acts like he cares. You don't care? Someone else said, hey, brother, good to see you. Well, they said they're good to see me. They don't really want to see me. They didn't like me. I know it. I can feel it. And people, some people live like that. Cynical, unhappy. But the others who choose to believe, they believe they come to church. I believe God's going to speak to us. I believe that. So people just say, you know what? I know I believe that. The police officer stops you. You can't say, you're not a real police officer. You're a fake. I know. I feel it. You can feel it inside the jailhouse. Mm-hmm. And so the person is always second guessing. So that's not the way, but most people have a tendency to totally believe. We want to believe. But the problem is when we believe the wrong thing, we can endanger others. Like with this device, letting people go who shouldn't be allowed to go through, that put people in danger. So when we believe certain things that we really shouldn't believe in or do, we bring harm, not just to ourselves, but to the others that are following us sometimes. That's what happens when people sin. When someone starts sinning, they are believing a lie. And that lie is telling them that they are going to be more happy doing this than doing right. You're going to be more happy fulfilling the lust of your flesh. You're going to be more happy if you do this or you do that. And they begin to do that a little bit and dabble in sin a little bit. Because behind it all, they're saying, this is going to bring me happiness. The reality is sin does not do none of that. It comes into people's lives, but like sin don't stay there because we affect everyone who's following us. So if we start going down a wrong path, we're going to let things into our life that people behind us, it could be our kids, it could be our wife, it could be our husband, it might be, can come into their life. And the reality is we're believing something we should not be believing, but that's our nature. That's how people can fall for pranks. Not just pranks, people can fall for crazy things. I've got emails, you have too, from guys in Nigeria that want to give me $15 million. You know, when I first started getting them a couple times, like, wow, thank you, Jesus. I thought, yeah. See, I believed. And I said, Nate, is this real? Nate says, Dad, no. Are you sure? Dad, it's not real. None of them are? And they come up with some crazy stories. Crazy stories. Met a lady in one of our churches. She was sending money to her boyfriend who's getting ready to fly over to be with her. He never made it. But he kept getting money from her. Thousands and thousands of dollars. As time went on, he'd say, I'm stuck in this other country now, I'm trying to make my way, I need this much. So, okay, because they met each other on the internet, and they loved each other, and they had connection. How do you have connection with someone who's 12,000 miles away from you? And so she kept sending her money. Her boyfriend's coming. Here he comes. Her answer to her life. He's coming into her life. They're going to get married. They're going to go here and there. She talked about all the things, all the places she's going to take him. He was going to take her. And he just kept asking for money, and she didn't. Finally, she realized after spending thousands and thousands of dollars, it was a scam. She believed. So believing can hurt you and hurt other people, especially when it comes to sin. So look at someone and say, how can they believe that? We all could. I don't look at someone who's doing something crazy and say, how could they do that? I know how they can do it because we're all capable of doing it. That's the truth. So let me get into the sermon for a few moments anyway, kissing chimpanzees. I'm going to preach the next 25 minutes. Is that okay? We are further down the road we should be, but I'm going to preach. They said, yeah. Here's our text. Quick, let me go through this, and I try to make it brief. Genesis chapter 3, and the Lord God said, the man shall become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to touch or reach out his hand and take from the tree of life and eat and live forever. So the Lord banished him from the Garden of Eden to work the ground which had been taken. So we know the story. I've talked about it for the last number of weeks, that they take from the tree they shouldn't have touched, and God basically says, you did something I told you not to do, and God says basically, not in my house. So God kicked them out. The word really is, it's a forceful movement. It's forceful. They were forced out of the Garden of Eden. God rejected them, threw them out. Doesn't sound like a loving God to some people. But God was saying, not in my house. You can't sin and live in my house. You can't practice sin and live in my house. Some people don't believe that. They say, it doesn't really matter what happens in my house. Well, it does matter what happens in your house. What you allow through the doors of your house, to be in your house, be a part of your home, will affect you. And if you say it will not affect me, then you're telling me and everyone else that you're smarter than God. Because you're saying sin affects them, but it won't affect me. The fact that you believe that, you've already been deceived. But you don't know you've been deceived. Why? Because you're deceived. So, point one, the experience we do not need to experience. It's the half-truth. By sinning, Adam and Eve know evil on a very personal level. But it's like a cancer patient knowing cancer. The reality, you may know about it, but you do everything possible to be cured from it. And now they're going to know something. The problem is sometimes personal knowledge leads to destruction, not enlightenment. It's not just your eyes open, you're on the road to destruction. We think this is going to enlighten me at some point. People partake of something they shouldn't partake of, and in their mind, I want this experience. I'm just going to see what it feels like. I just want to try it once. I'm going to do this, and I'm just curious about this, whatever it might be. So they go there. Here's the problem, is the obvious one, but we make decisions that profoundly influence our lives, but it also profoundly influences the manner or person we will be later on. We fail to understand the person you are now, and there's a person that you are becoming, is based on the decisions you make now. In the future, you look back to your old self, and you say, why did I make the decisions that I made? Look at me now. But when you were here making those terrible choices, for some reason it didn't click. So years go on, and all of a sudden you realize, you know what? What was I? Man, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe what I've done. And then people say, I will never do that again. So, decisions. We're not always thrilled about the decisions we make. One man said, so young people pay good money to get tattoos removed that teenagers pay good money to get. Older adults work hard to lose the middle-aged what middle-aged adults work hard to gain. Middle-aged people rush to divorce people who young adults rush to marry. Genesis chapter 3. In that portion, God says, or actually Eve says, you must not eat or even touch it. If you will die. Now this is Eve responding back to the serpent. And the serpent lays out a few things, but what he's doing is he wants Eve to tell me your take on what God said. Because people, if I ask you to tell me your take, then you're going to give me basically your angle on what has already been said. And she misconstrues it a little bit, which is no big thing. She said, well, God says you can't touch the garden. Touch the tree. God never said you can't touch the tree, but it's implied. She said, God said you can't touch the tree or you're going to die. But in Genesis chapter 2, that's not what God said. God says, you shall... The day you eat of it, you shall surely die. No big deal, but, well, maybe it is a big deal. God says, for sure you will die. Eve says, you die. And when the serpent begins to talk to Eve, when the Bible scholar said, he meant this. When he began to say, what he said to her was, you're right, God says you're going to die, but you have nothing to worry about now. You're going to die. I agree with God on that. And here's his take. But he's taken it off what she has said. He's taken her words and finding out where she is at here, says, okay, perfect. And he says this, and he says to her, the way it is written is, you're right, God said you're going to die, but not right now. You have nothing to worry about. Isn't that the picture painted of sin? You can take it right now. You don't have to worry about it now. Yeah, it's bad, but everyone's doing it. You don't have to worry about it now. So, brings me to these few points. Serpent lays out his point. We know the story. She takes the fruit. She ate. Gave it to her husband that was with her, and he ate too. And so, Now Eve obviously is a sinner. She goes from a saint to a sinner really quick. The Bible says in John, he that committed sin is a slave of sin. Timothy said she had been taken captive by the enemy to do his will. So now she is a sinner and not a saint. Sinner and saint. Sinners and saints sometimes don't get along. Right? Someone stands for righteousness. Someone who is saying, that's not right, you shouldn't do that. Those people sometimes clash, and sometimes the people that are doing the ungodly thing, the unclean thing, will come against people that make a stand for righteousness. We all know that. And they want to get those people away. So the only way to change the dynamic of the relationship is I'm a sinner, you're a saint. I have to make you a sinner too. I want you to partake of the sin that I've just partaken of. And so Eve becomes not just a sinner, she becomes a seducer to her own members of her family, to her own husband. You want the best for your wife, for your husband, not the worst. But when you're a sinner, you don't care. I'm going down, you're going down with me. But you don't, Eve, like I said last week, Adam, you don't have to go down with her. I told you, like last week, God can create a new one, new Lupita. Probably better if she makes tortillas than carne asada. So I brought that to this. So the choice we know becomes a chain, but I'll save that for later. But here's what I want to get to right now. Right now there's an epidemic. I'm just going to give you some facts and things we're going to go through very briefly. But there's an epidemic in America right now with young people, started as young as the age of 12 years old and older, becoming alcoholics, becoming drug addicts, teens and others. Thousands of them are being murdered, not murdered. Thousands are being killed because of drug overdoses. Thousands of teens. So let me tell you a few things about what's going on with drug use. Well, since the 1990s, there's a 500% increase in opiate drug use. 500% since 1990s. So here's some of the facts. And there's a reason why I'm saying it. For the obvious thing is I want to speak to everyone, but we all need to be aware, especially young people, because young people, listen, you can't afford to take drugs. You say, well, I was going to try it one time. Here's the truth, medically. Your brain ain't developed yet. That's why teenagers age you. Teenagers? No. They age you. No, because it's a fact. Their brain is not fully developed until like 20, 22 years old. Their brain is not fully developed. That's why they make some wild, crazy, nutty choices. When they're that young, they don't have enough sense to fear. I've gone to a few rides. The rides scare me. You know, some people go on rides like nothing. They're going backwards. These rides at Disneyland. Simply, like me, hey, well, I'm a drunk, and nothing makes me fearful. I get scared just looking at the ride. No way I'm up in there, huh? No way. I have nightmares forever. But they have no fear. It's not because they don't have no fear, they have no fear. It's because their brain ain't developed yet. So you could say to them, your brain ain't fully there yet. That decision, yeah, you're in development. Don't get mad at me, young people. Hang on. So here it is. Drug addiction has been on the rise for many years, now includes children as young as age 12. One of the biggest problems is young people especially, and people are generally, and these ain't exact, but it covers all age groups, but listen, generally people like to experiment with different drugs. The majority of people, especially teenagers, think that just one time won't do any damage. They don't realize that doing drugs just one time, they can become an addict and develop eternal damages. So here's the points. Addiction, even 12-year-olds are starting to develop drug addiction soon after they try drugs for the first time at 12 years old. Statistics have the ability to change people's view. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying. The data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says people die from legally purchased prescribed drugs than heroin and cocaine combined. These are legal drugs are killing more people than heroin and cocaine combined. They say, it probably says it down there, it's an epidemic in America. Americans are in more pain than any population in the world. About 80% of all global opiate supply is consumed in the United States. And if you take in Western countries like Canada and Western countries, Western Europe, just though Western Europe, Canada, and America, we consume 95% of all the opiate drugs in the world. That means the world shares 5% of all these type of drugs for the rest of the world, and we get 80% here. Why? Because Americans can't stand pain. And, you know, there's a lot to go by there, but it started out well, and people need pain medication, but not every single person needs pain pills. They say half Americans, half the adult American population is in some kind of pain. So, okay, what does that mean? But we've come to a point now that they think just giving prescriptions. Let me just say this, if you're on some pain pills, I'm not trying to beat you up, I'm just trying to warn the young people. But even then, listen to this. This equals about $24 billion a year. But United States, we have enough pain. Right now in America, it used to be millions of prescriptions written, just millions. Today, 2016, there was written, listen to this is hard to believe. 300 million pain prescriptions were given out. Today, that's enough for every adult, excluding children, every adult in America to have a bottle of pain pills plus some left over. We're the only country in the world that does that. The problem is these pain pills, they're in the medicine cabinets, and young people get to them. Most young people end up dying, get those pain pills. They're legal pain pills for a parent or a grandparent. They take those pills without anyone knowing. They take a couple out and they try it. And believe it or not, many, thousands end up dead. Used one time. A young person thinks it will never happen to me. I ain't going to be no drug addict. I ain't going to try them. I can take those drugs. You know, it's not going to affect me. It's crazy. Listen, drug overdose is the leading cause of accidental death in the U.S. with 52,404 legal drug overdoses. Drug overdose is the leading cause of injury, death in 2013, greater than all the car accidents and homicides or guns. Combine all those together in the legal deaths from these legal drugs. Overdose is that. Many of the people that are on opiate drugs will switch to heroin because it's a cheaper source. It's a cheaper source. You know, I heard the word heroin, I'm thinking, that's a hard drug. Do you know most of the prescription drugs that are given out are stronger, a lot stronger than heroin? They have a hard, that right, you can get addicted on that. That's a harder addiction than heroin addiction. They say a lot of truckers get pain pills and they switch to heroin. They switch to heroin because it's a lot cheaper version, because the pain pills are a lot more money and a lot less strong. They say heroin is taking a step, they call it a step down drug. Heroin? A step down drug? Well, I guess so. That's where they're going, down, right? That's crazy. Listen to this. Okay, let me just say this. Let me just go over a few consequences of drug use, and this applies to all of us. This can happen to anyone. Using drugs, even just once, can result in death or in some causes. The problem is this: the result of the chemical reaction in your body, because you've never taken drugs before, so you don't know how your body's going to respond. You think you're all that smart. Well, I can take this. Have you ever taken it before? No, I know how. If you've never taken it before, how do you know how it's going to affect your body? And every body is different. Everyone here will react to a drug differently. No two are exactly the same. So here it is. While not everyone who does drugs for the first time will pass away, this does happen to thousands of people every year. There are thousands of cases where the first-time drug users would end up either dead or in an emergency room or in critical condition. You never know what's going to happen in your body or your brain when you're under the influence of drugs. Some drugs can cause permanent brain damage. Listen to this: permanent brain damage when they are used for the first time. This results in the problems with cognitive abilities, motor functions, and a lot of other things. For example, ecstasy done just one time can damage brain cells permanently because they become starved for essential nutrients. One bad needle, you can get AIDS. Doing something you should never do, you can get AIDS after one time having sex. Not just sex, a bad needle. HIV and AIDS from a dirty needle. It's crazy. Most people that get these needles, they get them from a so-called friend. So they trust that the needle is clean. Your friend's doing drugs. He's out of his mind. If he said, yeah, man, it's clean, I checked. My mom uses it on their dog at the vets. They only used it on the dog. Was it clean? Out of their mind. Just one dirty needle can cause someone be extremely sick for the rest of their lives. Addiction is always at risk, even using drugs just for the first time. What happens? People take the drug one time, they love that feel. As time goes on, they got to get a higher feel and a higher feel, so they take more and they take more and they take more. They have a whole special on it yesterday on Dr. Radio. And this was a woman. I don't forget how many women die every single day, legal drug overdoses, women. There's not hundreds, not every day. I think 40 a day drop dead because they're taking legal prescriptions just too much. These are very strong drugs. This one lady talked yesterday on the radio. She talked about her experience. She has a lot of medical problems. She started taking these drugs, and she was never a drug addict before. Never. She says, I never did drugs my entire life until my doctor prescribed them to me. I started taking them, and I got out of hand. He gave me a month's supply. The month's supply was, after time went on, wouldn't last a month. It lasted 3 weeks. She said, then it got down to lasting only 2 weeks because she was doubling up on the dose. She says, now I'm down to a week, and sometimes I'm down to a few days using the whole month's supply. If she continues, obviously, she'll probably be one of those people who die. Overdosing is very common in the first-time use. You may not die, but you end up in an emergency room or in critical condition and never be the same person. So how long, just quickly here, how many times does it take someone to become a heroin addict? How many times do you have to take heroin to become an addict? They say to become a heroin addict, if you can extend it, not just the one time, 3 times. And they say that third time you take heroin, you're locked into addiction. Now you have a choice that becomes a chain. You say, I only did it 3 times. That's all it took. So, that's some of the facts. The sin nature of man is the only religious doctrine that can be scientifically, empirically verified. All you have to do is observe people. So let me go back to our story before I end. Here's Adam and Eve. They eat the fruit, and what happens when they eat the fruit? Does Adam spit it out? Did Eve spit it out? No, it tastes actually really, really good. Sin always tastes good. It's probably sweet. It probably tasted well. And the issue is not necessarily the fruit. The Bible says God made the garden, and the garden was good. All was good. And maybe at a later date, they would be permitted to eat that. I don't know. I'm not God. But it was there for them. And God says, now, at this time, you can't touch it. And that makes a lot of sense because sin is always the shortcut. Eve, you could have had that later on if you would have did it the right way. Instead of getting married, people live together. That's the shortcut. Sin is always a shortcut. It's a short route. It's an easy route. It's faster. It's easier. It's more convenient. Now, if Adam ate the fruit and spit it out, he said, this is terrible. But sin is never, you eat it and you go, man, this is good. That's what's attractive about it. You taste it, well, I like this feeling, man. I like this feeling of these drugs. I like this feeling of whatever. It could be an alcohol. They got, listen, hundreds of young people a year are dying because of alcoholism. Young people. You can't get drunk if you don't take one drink. You can't become an addict if you don't touch the drugs. So Adam takes it. He don't spit it out. It probably tastes good. It always does. For a while. Because the moment they ate it, right then and there, God just didn't grab them. That didn't happen. They ate it. God just surely died. Look at each other. I'm not dead. You're not dead. Then God says, yo, Adam, what up? He didn't say it like that. But God comes on the scene and God deals with him and you know the story. Okay, move on here. Listen to this. One man said, sin is too stupid to see beyond itself. So he becomes a sinner. Now she's a seducer. And it's a tool the enemy would use to ensnare her own husband. It's terrible when couples, sometimes unity in a couple is great. But sometimes unity can not be so good. To be in unity on agreeing with evil is not good. Ananias and Sapphira, great couple, they are no longer alive. God says, bad union on that one. They lied. Both of them agreed to lie to God together. That was a unity that wasn't good. The Bible says in Hebrews, quickly, be exhort one another daily, what is called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. The word deceive means to ensnare. Something happens when you are deceived. It's not just like you're a little deluded in your mind. You're literally ensnared. And the word comes from a word that means to take you. Deception will take hold of you. That's why it grips you and it don't let you go. You're deceived. Honey, that's not a good choice. You tell a teen, don't do that. Don't go with that guy. Don't go down there. They don't see how bad it is. You speak truth. You try to get to their head. You say, come on, you can't do that. And you speak, and they think they know better, and they go on their way. Why? Because they've been deceived. They've been grabbed. And nothing's going to shake them from either that decision or that sin. They don't care if you're going to end up in hell or not. They say, I don't even believe in that, Mom. So, when Adam and Eve disobeyed, they experienced something, but that's an experience you don't need to have. Listen to me, that's an experience you don't need to have. People say, but I want to just experience this. Why? It's still disobedient. It's not good. I'm glad my sons, two of my sons are here, right? I'm glad that they didn't grow up with an alcoholic father. And I look at them and say, just try it one time. Just if you need the experience to be a real man, you could say, I drank, I was stupid just like my dad. I was an alcoholic just like my dad. Praise God. I mean, come on. No, there's so many things you know you don't need to experience, and no, you don't need to go down that road, and no, you should not make that decision. And so they experience it. When you sin, you think you're getting one thing, but you're actually getting something else. So I'm going to show you this video. We've edited it, but I probably shouldn't have, because it's kind of a little, it's only 2 minutes long, not even, but it's kind of crazy. But I thought, you know what? I mean, like a lot worse. And if this shakes you a little bit, maybe, to make a right choice, then maybe it's worth showing the whole thing. But I edited it for the parents or for people to say that was just unclean. Unclean, bless God, unclean. Unclean? You don't even pay tithe. You're unclean. Unclean. Take that, honey. You're self-righteous. Watch this.
This is the venue they chose for their fake auditions for an advert for lip balm.
We're hoping that we can use part of this in a national commercial, right? And this is a test on some lip balms that we have over here.
Okay.
And these are our models who are going to help us, Roger and Matt.
Okay.
And we have our own lip balm, and we have a leading brand.
Okay.
Would you have any problem kissing our models to test? You wouldn't?
No.
I think that was fine.
That would be fine.
Okay. So that this is a blind test, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and put a blindfold on. Okay, now can you see anything?
No.
Hold up so you can't even see down.
Okay.
It's completely blind now,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Okay. Now what I'm going to be looking for in this test is how soft makes the lips, okay, the texture, right, and maybe if you can discern any flavor or not.
Okay.
Have you ever done a kissing test before? Are you excited? Sit in. Okay, now I'm going to ask you to pucker up big, and lean in just a little bit, okay? Okay. All right.
Oh, baby. One of the girls there was kissing. Did you, like, you know, French toast stuff, you know what I mean? And that's on there. Like, oh my. Their feelings fooled them. If you knew what I'm asking, how does this feel right when they're kissing? Oh, this is great. This is unbelievable. Open your eyes. They're all in shock. They just could not believe it. Well, you know what? When you sin, I don't care what you choose, you're kissing chimpanzees. You take that bottle, kissing chimpanzees. Pick that pill, just that one time, you're kissing chimpanzees. You go off with that guy your mom told you don't go off with, you're really kissing chimpanzees. You're kissing an ape. And when we realize that we're not as smart as God, I know it's not easy being a Christian. It's not easy trying to do right in a world that's bent on doing wrong and evil and unclean. But you say, you know what, God, this is not easy to do. No one ever said it was going to be easy. It is difficult, very difficult at times. And so you know what? So I want to do what's right, and I'm not going to let my feelings rule me. I'm not going to go by how I feel. God's grace can help you. You know what? You can live a life of overcoming. You don't have to start kissing chimpanzees. So from now on through, you begin to mess up, whatever the mess up is for you. Husband, your wife can look at you and go, honey, you been kissing chimpanzees? Tell your teenage daughter, where you been? Kissing chimpanzees? Sin is kissing chimpanzees. What you think you're going to get, you do not ever get in sin. Never. Bow your heads. Every head bowed, every eye closed, please. First of all, to all Christians, you're here this morning, and you say, you know, Pastor, I just need God really to give me some strength. I need help with my mind. I need help with some of my choices. You're a Christian, your heart is set on trying to do what's right. You say, God, I just need some strength from you. Raise your hand. That's you. Just be honest. Yes, yes, yes. I need help. I need strength. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, yeah, I need you, God, to give me something I don't have, and that's grace and strength. Young man, you don't need to watch that. It's going to destroy you. Maybe you're here this morning and you're a backslider. You see, no, Pastor, it was too difficult. I chose to begin to kiss chimpanzees, and I went on my way and did my own thing. And I'm here this morning and say, you know what? I don't care who you are. God's grace is big enough. His mercy is strong enough to keep us, not only keep us, to forgive us. And you're here this morning. You say, you know what, God? I'm not as smart as you. I'm going to lay down my pride, and I'm going to come back to you, Lord. If that's you this morning, raise your hand. Say, I'm a backslider. I'm going to recommit my life to God. Let me ask you a question. Why wouldn't you want to get right with God? Why come to a service? You know what's going to be talked about? Hopefully you're here and you say, you know what, Pastor, you can be a young man, young girl, anybody. I want to give my life back to the Lord. Here's my hand. I'm coming back to God. Raise your hand if that's you. Maybe you've never been saved before, never really committed your life to Jesus. And this morning you'd like to commit. Lift up your hand. If that's you. Let's all stand this morning. Many hands raised. Let God's grace give us some strength at this altar. Come and find a place to pray.